Introducing the new Acura Integra. Tracks sold separately.
Hey guys, so it's the end of the year, and I haven't worked on the TR6 and getting caught up on all the other projects I've ignored for the last 10 months. So the TR6 has all the shit piled on it while I made room for the wife's old Integra, and getting ready to sell it, and it needed new bushings, tie rod ends, everything. So I was looking around, didn't see any videos on it, so I figured I'd make one. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so the symptoms of my wife's car were I'd go over bumps, I'd hear thunking and squeaking from the front and the back. Looking on the forums, the squeaking was said it was due to the upper control arm bushings. I looked around, I jacked it up, I could see where there was a bunch of stuff that was pretty much shot. So what I'll be doing, the shocks are fine. I'll be doing the upper control arm, the lower control arm bushing where the damper fork comes in, the front, this is the front lower control arm bushing. On my case, you'll see it, the back bushing is really huge in both cases. I already did the driver's side. They're both fine. This is the link between the sway bar and the lower control arm. Both of mine were shot. I'm going to do the tie rod ends. They were both shot, and these are just bushings. So I actually bought a mix of aftermarket and Honda parts. In some cases, the Honda parts were cheaper. Like this thing's like $42 at Honda and $50 aftermarket. And on the back, I couldn't really find as much aftermarket, so I bought Honda parts. But I'll do that in a different vid. Tools, typical stuff. If you want to get a ball joint separator, I bought this for my Triumph. You can get it for free. Big freaking hammer, torque wrench. This is my neighbor's big torque wrench, the big boy torque wrench. Pry bars, crowbars, big screwdriver. This is my crescent wrenches, and that's my impact driver. You don't necessarily need that. And blue Loctite for all your things. I don't use red. I don't know if red's recommended or not. I would just be using blue. Alright. Oh, and this is the bushing where the sway bar comes across and attaches to the frame. I think they're fine. These are like $8. I don't know what the return policy is. I'll probably wind up returning those. Alright, and then you just jack up the car. You can see it in my mess here, my garage, and put it on jack stands in the front. And I got the back chocked. Alright, one thing I forgot to mention, which I didn't realize before I started, there's a couple places where you can't get your socket. So I had to go and buy, like 18 through 22 millimeter wrenches, which I didn't have. I only had up to 17. So I'll go through in the video later and call out where they're needed, so you don't, if you don't have it, you know which size to get. Alright, so just getting the lay of the land, I'm going to replace this upper control arm because these two bushings are shot. It comes in as an assembly. I got it for like $45. They say this is welded in, you can't take out this ball joint there. I'm going to do this tie rod end right there, because it's shot right down here. Okay, here is the sway bar coming in next to the lower control arm right there. I'm going to replace that link. That is clunking. On the other side, on the driver's side, I replaced that boot over the steering assembly. That was a pain in the ass. There's the bushing for the sway bar. I'm going to do that. And let's see here. There's the bushing for the front lower part of the control arm. And then here's the damper fork where that comes in. That is all correct, so I'm going to replace that one. And the big bushing at the rear of the control arm, that big one right there, that's fine on both of them. at least it looked fine on the driver's side. It turned out to be fine. We'll take that out and we'll see if I have to replace that as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna do the upper control arm first, because take that out, you have to take out the shock, because it wraps around the back of the shock, and that way it leaves the lower control arm in to keep the splines of the drive shaft and everything connected, otherwise it wants to hang down. And then you've got everything disconnected, which is kind of a pain in the ass. So I'll do the upper one first, reconnect it, reassemble, and then do the lower, all the stuff in the lower. And I'll be pressing the bushings. I've got a jack and I borrowed a buddy's spring, so we'll do that. Alright, so first part to remove the lower control arm, jack up the bottom of the lower control arm to keep it in place, and remove the brake lines. And yeah, we'll do that now. Oh yeah, and before I go any further, I'm going to spray down all the bolts and nuts that I'm going to remove, and let them, a little bit of this stuff, PB Blaster, I like it. You use WD-40 or liquid wrench or whatever you got. So what we're going to do next, brake lines disconnected, we'll we're gonna take the shock assembly out so that we can remove this. So what we have to do is undo this link here, and then undo this bolt right here. I'm sorry, we'll undo this bolt, not that bolt. And then we'll undo this pinch bolt right here, and then this bottom fork can separate from the shock. Sorry about that. And undo these two nuts that hold the shock assembly in. And then we'll just slide that out. Alright. Alright, one tool I forgot, you need a 5mm Allen to put in there. Well, you put a 14 wrench on the outside. That keeps the ball joint on the link from spinning. So hopefully I'll remember to put that at the beginning. Alright, so I got the link out. The trick I did to get it out, I got my pry bar up in there and over the control arm. Took all the pressure off the jack and lifted this guy up like that. And that allowed the bottom of the link to come out, that hole. Alright, so I can't quite see it in the camera. Got it on the tripod, but I removed the pinch bolt in the back and the damper fork to lower control arm. So I'm just going to wiggle this guy off. He is now free. Let's see if I can get him out of there. I forget the trick I did on the other one. Alright, so I got the damper fork out. I got the shock assembly supported with a couple hunks of wire. And I'm just going to take the two top bolts out. Alright. So I'll take that out and then lower this guy out of there. Alright, well, take these guys off. And obviously, if you were, my shocks are fine, at least I think they are. It seems to bounce okay, or not bounce. But, you get your spring compressor and replace the struts if you need to. There you go. Alright, I'll take out this cotter pin. I'm going to remove these two bolts. They tie the control arm to the frame. Senior moment. Alright, so let's see if I can do this without knocking the camera over. Got your ball joint separator. I'm screwing it into the thingamabobber. So I removed the castle nut, you know, about 2 threads. And just to be safe, goggles. And get my big hammer. I don't know if you can hear that. Dave Brubeck just came on the iPod Shuffle. That guy just died. That's too bad. Alright, I'm going to slide this on top. Let's see if I can knock the shit out of it here. There we go. And it just came loose. So now I can take that nut off. Alright, so then I'm going to do the top 2 bolts. I'm going to support this, and I'll be right back. Alright, I got that secured. Note, I didn't go through the control arm like the first time I tied it up like a dummy. Gotta go around it because you can't get it off. And we'll just do these 2. And I'm not going to show that one. I've got to remove all that other stuff to get it. So let's see here. Alright, so then you just manhandle this guy out. Alright, so there's a new upper control arm. And here's why I thought you had to take these out. On the other side, I'd forgotten that these don't come torqued. You need to torque them with the vehicle at the approximate ride height. So later on, I'm going to have to jack that up as high as I can, and then torque these, because otherwise you overstress the rubber bushing. So I'll just install this. I'm going to put these 2 on, torque them, put this guy in, and put the cotter pin in. So I'll reinstall that, and I'm going to leave it hanging until later when I torque everything, when I jack it up, because I'm going to do the lower stuff too at the same time. That won't be till later. Alright, so here we are up top. I'm going to hold on a minute. Ah, there it is. Lost the nut. Put a little anti-seize on here. Not the cleanest. I mean, Loctite, sorry. I don't know why, but I get on camera and I don't know, I can't talk. Loctite. Now these, for whatever reason, they came off, the old ones, the Honda ones, Acura ones were 17s. These are 18s. I have a metric socket set I bought when I lived in Germany. And I have a mixed one. And another mixed one. And I don't have any 18s, so I had to go to the store and buy an 18. The other time I used a 3/4, but kind of anal. Torque wrench, these are to 47 pounds, inch-pound. So I'll just do that. It's going to be don't forget there's 2 different part numbers for left and right control arm. Let me check under here. Fucked up. Stomach flush. There you go. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to do the ball joint and the upper control arm. So the torque spec on this guy is 29 to 35. So what you're going to do is set your torque wrench at 29, and then you've got the cotter pin hole locked, and I dropped. So now you're at the lower end of the torque spec. So then just take your normal wrench and crank it until it clears the hole. My head is not blocking. Get one castellation pass. So now you're in the ballpark. So now I'm going to jack this up to about ride height and can you see it? Tighten the two nuts there. And I'll do that now. Alright, so I've got it jacked up so that it's kind of in the middle of the wheel well. Maybe I'll give it another pump on the jack, and then I won't show it doing it, but I'll just tighten up those two guys. Alright, so I've tightened the pivot nuts. It's this guy and this guy. Can you see it? So my manual doesn't list a pivot bolt torque spec for Integra, but it says for Civic it's 40. I'm assuming because, I don't know, who knows why. Maybe the way the assembly says. So I'm going to try and torque it to 40. Alright, so, let's see if I can focus that in there. There you go. Upper control arm, ball joint nut, 29 to 35. Civic, pivot bolts 40. And CRV. Integra, control under shock tower nuts. So, maybe it's just because the way the assemblies come on the aftermarket stuff. So hopefully I did that right. And now I will reassemble the brake line. Actually, no, I'm going to keep that off. And now I'm going to start disassembling the lower control arm. Alright. Alright, so I checked the internet, and yeah, they say 40 to 50. So, yeah, the internet's always right. Anyway, I think I did the right thing. Now what do I do? Now we'll move on to the lower. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to do the lower. Same as before, I'll get my ball joint separator. I'll take out the cotter pin, crack that off a few turns, take this guy out, and I will take the front pivot bolt out. I'll go to the back. Alright, I'll take off this nut. Now, the manual says you don't have to remove these 3 nuts that hold the rear bushing on if you're just taking this out, but I find it on the other side it was almost impossible. So what I'm going to wind up doing is taking off this bracket that holds the bushing in for the stabilizer, taking these off, and this guy off. That one, hold on. Yeah, that one doesn't go to it. So this guy. So these 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this one is, if I recall, is longer. So you have to remember that the long one goes in the front on this side, if I recall. So we'll see when I take it off. Then we'll take the lower control arm off, and then we'll push these out and then put in new ones. impact driver doesn't reach that. Well, I can't get access to it, so I live in California. Benefit, oh fuck, hopefully you can see this. Benefit is that a lot of times stuff doesn't get too bound up. Lefty loosey. Forever. Alright, so there's the rear lower control arm bushing, and as you can see, you can't get in a socket, and I can't get in my impact driver at all, so I'm just going to take it off with the 18mm wrench, and let's see, maybe I can do one hand. Oh, boy. That is hard. So, I'm actually going to put that front pivot bolt back in to hold it in place. I'm going to pull on that. The instructions say to remove the front one, but I'll put that back in. Put the front pivot bolt in, that'll keep that from slopping around. Alright, let's try that again. I've got that front bolt hand tight. There we go. That guy's off. Now when you take these off, remember the cups all face one way, so the profile goes, they're cupped up this way, each side. It's hard to see, but you can see. And the front one is as well. So it's like, you know, almost like aerodynamic going towards the front of the car. So just remember that. I'll finish taking this off, and I'm going to, maybe I'll show it on camera too. I'll take these off. Alright, it's off, and I apologize. It is a 19, not an 18. So yeah. Alright, so we're going to take the bracket that holds the stabilizer bushing off. There's 2 bolts. Hold please. Stabilizer bar bushing, it's not in bad shape. It's a little deformed, so I guess for $8 or whatever, I'll replace it. Just notice that the slit goes towards the front of the car. It's labeled front with an arrow, as is the bracket. I don't know if you can see that arrow. Alright, so I'm going to take those guys off. I'm not going to do it on camera. They are super tight. Alright, so we got the lower control arm out. Here's the bolts. You can see, you know, those 2 are the same length. That's that guy and that guy. This one, just remember, goes in the front hole. Just so I didn't forget, I wrote front, so that this one goes that side. This will be the back one. It'll also go like that on that. So yeah, so you can see the bushing is, that one's starting to go. That one's, let's see if I can get it there. Doesn't show. Around the top, you can see it there. It's torn. So I'll be pushing that out. Thing weighs a ton. Alright, so next we'll take out that bushing and that bushing. Oh, and yeah, this guy's fine. I don't see any marks or anything on it. That was the same as the driver's side. So beefy, I guess it lasts for a while. Alright, now we'll